All right, good morning, everybody. Another alumni video today, and I'm going to start by getting her to introduce herself.
Hey everyone, my name is Melissa and I am a senior technical writer at IQmetrics. I also have other roles like product owner, business analyst, software developer, but I am primarily a technical writer, even though I do have a computer science degree from the University of Manitoba. I've been at IQmetrics for going on 10 years and I am a graduate of Sturgeon Heights.
Thank you, Melissa. What year did you graduate, if you don't mind?
I think it was 2008. That sounds about right.
It's all a blur now. Can I ask you, my first question is about computer science. When did you decide to get kind of serious about it? What kind of sparked your interest in studying it? So I guess they're two separate questions.
Gotcha. So I grew up with my father being the head of IT for NORAD in 17 Wing, Winnipeg. In lead box that you have to open a submarine door to get in. So he always brought his work home with him. So growing up, I was really exposed to building computers and working with software. So I'd always been interested, but I was under the mistaken impression that if I didn't take computer science in high school, the door was closed to me forever. So it wasn't until that I went to university that I realized that I could still take computer science. So I took the first two classes, and that's what finally made me realize that I could. But the story that I really like telling when I do public speaking events is that my first realization that computer science existed outside of just building computers was when I went to Girls in Gaming, and we had a speaker named Sandy Desatolz from Microsoft who showed us a brand new programming language at the time called C#, and he made us create a button on a screen, and when you click the button it changed color, and it just blew my mind completely that you could do something like this with the computers. And I'm pretty sure it was you, Mr. Walks, who convinced me to go to that class. So that's the class that basically changed my entire career.
I might have lit the spark, Melissa, but you were certainly an independent woman then, and I'm sure you are still today. And I don't think anyone can really make you do anything, Melissa. But I remember I did teach you a couple different subjects at school, but yeah, I remember that computer science wasn't actually one of them. And although you and I would have conversations around that time and in the future, certainly since we've known each other now about that subject, yeah, you were certainly an independent person. Was that fair to say back in high school?
Yeah, definitely true. I was kind of an odd duck. I was one of the people
Oh, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, you
I
have.
wasn't part of the common crew. I was like anime nerd, like one or two friends, that's it, keep to myself, that kind of person.
What I'd love to ask you, Melissa, is your advice, especially for women in computer science. I know that's a personal passion of yours and mine. I really want to hear from you about that, if you could speak to that.
My advice for girls pursuing computer science, I would say I have a lot of small things. So I would say definitely pursue the co-op program, because you will never get a better opportunity to work, to have such an easy interview. I did a 30-minute interview with IQmetrics, and that was the only interview I ever did. I went from co-op to full-time, boom, done. I didn't have to do the multiple hours of interviews and practices and all that stuff that you have to do normally to work at IQ. I don't know if that's still the case. They might make co-ops who switch to full-time actually do that, but whatever. And if you do choose to do co-op, consider as much as possible doing an out-of-town position, because you will never find an easier way to do a short-term position somewhere else. It will never be that easy again in your entire life. So do it if you can. What else? Go to a lot of networking events if you can. There's Ladies Learning Code. I think Girls in Gaming might still be around. They're usually looking for volunteers. I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find it. I can't think of anything else right now. That's a hard question to answer. I should have probably had better answers.
Yeah, it is. Can I ask, A lot of times I find, especially with girls, is when things get hard, when to stay motivated. And things will get hard. I say that, that's probably the first line I always say when I start a computer science class is computer science is hard, but everything worth doing is hard. And I know for me, it might have been a certain math course when I was completing my computer science degree, or a certain programming problem I just couldn't seem to solve. I always like to say to kids, we're always going to encounter these things. But I think I'd love to hear, because I feel like girls are often, and this could be sexist to me, but they're often very hard on themselves in a field that is predominantly sort of traditionally male centered. So what's your advice for when things get tough?
So I would say, don't think that that's something that ever goes away. That stays with you your entire career. I know people who've been in the industry for 30 years who still find themselves frustrated, who still make stupid mistakes like forgetting a semicolon and then spin on that problem for hours and then finally like smack themselves in the head and say, I just wasted 5 hours because of a single character. So it never goes away. It's always something that's there. And you just have to learn to recognize when you're spinning in circles and pull yourself out of that situation. So I personally use this Pomodoro type app where I work for 25 minutes, and then when my alarm goes off, I force myself to get up and do something else for 5 minutes. So I can't be stuck on one thing and just get increasingly frustrated of why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? So I forced myself to take breaks. And I also, this is going to apply to everyone, but my spouse is a senior architect for Android at our company. So when I have problems, I try to explain what I'm doing to him, even though he doesn't fully understand it because I'm web. The act of explaining it to someone else sometimes helps you get over that hump.
Rubber ducking it, so to speak. I loved that story. I actually want to touch on something else with you, Melissa, because I know even right now I have some female students. And by the way, I have, I could be miscounting here, but I have at least 3 higher level IB computer science graduating students this year who are female in my class, which is awesome. It's so cool. A lot of my girls often are also very creative. I know one of them considers herself and is a very good artist. And I know that was also something you probably still have a passion for, but certainly did in high school. And I think one of the misnomers about computer science is that it isn't creative. Could you speak to how you feel computer science is in terms of its creativity aspects?
Oh, I am in the polar opposite of people who think computer science is just cold, hard logic. There's a reason that when you interrupt someone who's working on software development, that they can't just immediately jump back into that once you let them go. It's because there is inherent creativity required to create code. There isn't one perfect type of code architecture. Everything is different, and the higher level you get in terms of abstraction, it becomes, now you're managing something that's just so massive that it requires a lot of creativity to come up with new solutions and different solutions and mix and match solutions that you've seen before, which is also why a lot of people who do very intense type of CS jobs, they find themselves unable sometimes, if they don't manage themselves correctly, unable to pursue their creative passions because they spend so much of their creative juice at work that they don't leave anything else for art. So it becomes an important issue to manage your lifestyle so that you spend what you need to spend at work, but you leave enough that you can pursue your passions, your painting, your artwork, et cetera, after you're done working. And you don't just work 16-hour days all the time.
That's awesome advice. That's just awesome. Boy, you left me speechless there. Okay, so let me pull back to my question sheet here. Okay, a sort of a higher level meta question. If you could go back in time to high school Melissa, what advice would you give her?
I would say take that computer science class, because the fact that I didn't take it in high school was ridiculous. I actually consciously chose to take band over computer science, which I wish I could smack myself because I've never touched that trumpet in 15 years. And yet, oh, you got to take band instead. Like, just ridiculous. And continue to not care what people think. I've lived my life very people envious of my personality, where I don't care as much about what people think. And but it was hard to develop to that state where, just because I'm not doing things the same way that everyone else is, who cares, right? Like, once you leave high school, people that you meet on a daily basis, you will probably never see those people again, like just random people in the street. Who cares what they think?
What
So
an
just,
awesome message. It actually sails into one of my questions on here. I've asked people to give it gets better type message for kids leaving high school. I know even my daughter, like, there are tough days. High school, for me, I've replaced all my high school memories with high school teaching memories, probably because I had painful high school memories. But could you hit the kids with a "it gets better" message?
absolutely. So for me, high school was dramatically more difficult than college. As soon as I left high school and I started in university, it was like the world opened. Suddenly, I was in classes with people who had the same passions as me, who weren't so political, I guess the word is. You don't see these people all day, every day, so you don't form these like uh, intricate relationships with people. They just want to do their own thing. So they leave you alone and they help you if you want to be helped. But outside of college, which again was much easier, and second year was the hardest year in computer science and probably continues to be. So if you can get past second year, third year and fourth year are a breeze. They're so much easier. But a story that I think will resonate with this audience in particular is there is a serious talent shortage in tech right now. Whether or not that will still be the case in 10 years, I have no idea. But right now, some of the big companies are aggressively recruiting. I have now interviewed for Shopify, Google, Amazon, MuleSoft, a whole bunch more, who are just aggressively pursuing anyone who has our type of level of experience once you finish your degree, if that's what you choose. So one specific example, my spouse right now is interviewing for Facebook, and we told them, okay, we've been through the ringer with you guys multiple times. We know you want us to move to San Francisco. Tell us what you're going to give us to make up for the fact that it costs an arm and a leg to live in San Francisco. What is your actual pay band? And they came back. Now, take a minute to what you think is a senior developer salary in San Francisco, because I guarantee you it's not going to be what you think I'm going to say. $350,000 USD. That's what they came back and told us. So suffice to say, he's doing the interview.
That's awesome. Woo. I had a question and now it's slipped my mind. So could you give us and give the audience a quick snapshot of what a typical day would be like for you, Melissa, just so kids can kind of imagine themselves in your role?
Sure. So right now, things are a little bit topsy-turvy. So I get up and I wait for my spouse to shower because I'm lazy. And then I come over to my computer, which is 2 feet from my bed, and check all my emails, check all my Slack notifications, make sure that there weren't any sort of production outages or incidents overnight. Then I go to our Kanban board. So we have a board that has all of our work items that we're working on. I'm the tech lead, so I also have to make sure that the people that I'm managing, all my developers, have something to work on. So I make sure that none of their items are in a blocked state, that they haven't commented on anything saying they need help. Pick whatever item I'm working on and then start my Pomodoro tracker. So I do 25 minutes of heads down work on usually creating some type of code or writing some type of technical guide. And then I continue that way of 25 minutes and then a 5-minute break until I've done 4 sets of those. Then I take a 20-minute break to go play Beat Saber on Oculus Quest in the living room. Then I come back, make lunch, continue on that way, do a bunch of meetings. I always have like 2 or 3 meetings in a day and finish around 4:30. So usually 7:30 to 4:30.
That's great. That's great. Do you think that as a technical writer that you've also been able to inject some of your creativity into that as well? or is it just too cold and dry?
No, there's a lot of creativity in writing. Not as much as I would like there to be. I'm also a creative writer trying to get my books published right now. But there's something to be said for coming up with a unique voice. So if you've ever seen the Facebook post by Cards Against Humanity, they have a very distinct voice of how they communicate with their user base. And it's not like any other type of voice that you've seen. It's very sarcastic, it's very funny. A lot of people get offended by it, but it's a voice that they've made on their own. And it means that when you see a blog post or a Facebook post, even if you don't know that it's Cards Against Humanity, you can usually tell. So there's an interesting part of my work, which is coming up with the distinct style of voice that's very marketing centric, so that when someone sees something that I've made, they know that it was created by IQ Metrics.
Awesome. All right, well, let's finish with something like fun. I'm going to put two parts to this question. If you could, I know IQ Metrics is a great company for this, talk about some just having fun while at work. And also if you have a fun high school story you can share with our audience as a good way to kind of wrap up the interview today.
Oh man, we used to do much more fun things when we were a smaller company. That tends to be the case. The smaller the company, like the funner it is in many ways. So I did a video when I was a co-op. You can look on YouTube, IQ Metrics, I think it's like a Christmas story or something, where we did a Grinch style video where we bought a Christmas tree and we literally chopped it in half, like not this way. So we had the two parts of the Christmas tree, and we created such a horrendous mess all over the floor that the cleaners got super mad at us. And we had to come back in and clean up all the pine needles because, as it turns out, cutting a tree vertically creates a whole bunch of mess. We've created all kinds of videos. We did a lip dub back when lip dubs were popular. Again, you can find that on YouTube. High school. Man, I hated high school. What was fun about high school that's not depressing?
Getting it done?
Sorry?
Getting it done? Was that the good that sometimes I say to me that was something I enjoyed about high school, was getting it finished.
Yeah, it was over. I was the kind of person who I skipped my high school grad because as soon as it was over, I wanted nothing to do with high school. So I went and worked in a fly-in fishing camp in Northern Ontario instead of go to my grad.
Oh yeah, and this year's group has definitely a different sort of concerns with that. Anyways, I know grad wasn't a big deal for my daughter, but it's still an interesting interesting feeling there. All right, let's end with something positive, Melissa. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much. I hope for you kids watching this, you can derive inspiration from this. I know Melissa and I would run into each other occasionally over the last couple of years and have emailed back and forth as well. Can I just finish with giving you the last word on something I know you personally created and really positive thing, especially for girls, and that's that scholarship opportunity? Could you speak a little to that as we wrap up today?
Sure. I don't think we've got the scholarship approved yet for this year, but I'm going to try my hardest to get it approved. So when I started in full-time at IQ Metrics, one of the things I wanted was to create a scholarship because I don't want kids. Like, I'm very anti-child. Nothing against people who have kids or want kids, but I want my legacy to be that I create a full ride scholarship for a undergraduate student at the University of Manitoba so they can get full ride towards their CS degree. So 4 years, everything paid when I die, I guess. So I thought, what a great opportunity, since all this stuff about women in tech is coming up, why don't we create a scholarship? So I pitched it to the corporate, they gave the approval, and the scholarship has been running for 4 or 5 years, and at least 2 of the winners of the scholarship have come back to work at IQ Metrics. Neither of them stayed, but nonetheless, they came to work at IQ Metrics for a short time, and their winning of the scholarship definitely helped them get that position.
Thank you so much, Melissa. All right, kids, I'll see you next week.